Welcome to the Veriff 10th anniversary podcast series. This is the story of how an idea and a mission became a global leader, building trust for people and companies everywhere. My name is Anisah Osman Britton, and I'm going to be your host.
I'm Karita Sall, and I run the global communications for Veriff. And in fact, even though I've been with Veriff for 6.5 years, my journey with Veriff is a little bit longer. So the first time I encountered Veriff was in 2016, when I was running a PR agency in Estonia, and Veriff was one of our clients. And I helped Karel to organize the first press conference when they were launching the product. And I have to say it was quite different from what it is today. But interestingly enough, the two use cases, or the two verticals that we focused on at that time, was financial services and marketplaces. And even now, 10 years later, these are really relevant for us. And the funny thing is that when you think of the story, how we speak of Veriff, so Karel was promoting the company as if sheriff is the person keeping order in the real world, then Veriff is the one keeping order in the online world. And so this is how the name was coined as well, Veriff, sheriff, sort of play of words. Over the years, we moved away from the story because we don't want to be the police who's sort of checking what's happening with you online. So we would like to be more of the enabler. So this was sort of my first encounter with Veriff.
My name is Carly Brantz, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Veriff, and I joined in about mid-June, so I'm still fairly new. And yeah, when I joined, I had worked previously with the president of Veriff, Jeff Guy, at a previous company, and he introduced me to Carl, and I just knew right away what a really special and unique company it was, and what a really important problem that it was solving in identity verification and really providing trust on the internet. So I joined just before summer week, which was an extra special time to join the company. And I could see right away when the whole company was together and everyone from all over the world was together in Tallinn, just an incredible energy across the board from all employees, excited about what we're doing and the mission and establishing trust on the internet. So it's been wonderful so far. Everyone's been so welcoming, and yeah, excited for what's to come.
Yeah, I'd love to ask you a bit more about that, because obviously you've joined almost in the 10 years. I think it was just before actually it hit the 10-year mark. What do you think that excitement is, that next bit of the storytelling component?
Yeah, I think it is a really exciting moment when the story is sort of ready to grow and evolve from being this Estonian success story into much more of a truly global brand. I think there's a lot of pride and purpose across the team. I've been listening along to the previous podcasts that you've been doing, and one thing that has struck me from all the episodes is how you were noting how humble everyone is. And that's definitely true, and definitely wonderful to work with humble people. But when you think about messaging and bringing that brand story globally into life, I think it's time to be a lot more bold in our messaging right now. And it feels really like the perfect time for me to join and help to take that story, amplify it, and tell it more globally to the world.
Actually, Carly, you mentioned a very interesting thing. You said that everybody's really humble. I remember how we started building the story, the founding story of Veriff, and how could we, because we wanted to move away from the Veriff sheriff story, and obviously the founding story is so exciting. Karel hacking the systems early on, and so, but the story didn't really exist. And so the first time when we thought of how to build it and make it so that it's easy to understand and realize that we are solving a real problem that has been there for a long time. It was when Karel was preparing for the Y Combinator. We were working in the agency with him, and he came to test the story and tell the story. And I thought that, okay, we need to change gears, because, he has all of these things on his plate and he can't concentrate. And when it's just me, he needs to pitch to, it's not going to do anything. So I got, I think, 3 Americans, 1 Australian living in Estonia to our office, who are like VCs or business background and had been investing. And so, much older than Karel. So, and they all came to the office, and he did not expect this to happen. So he came to the room. He thought he was going to pitch to me, but instead there were like these four guys, and he had to deliver the story in English and sort of be coherent, what Veriff does. And of course, it was a total disaster. He failed, and then he realized, okay, I need to get my act together and get the story in line. And this is when he started telling all these things, what he did, in Hiiumaa, and how it came later with Wise, that he was trying to hack their systems, and how he thought that there was nothing wrong what he had done, and all the stories how he had been an entrepreneur before. And I mean, that was so much inspiration. And all these four guys, they said, even if Veriff fails and doesn't get anywhere, I would bet on Karel any time, because this guy has grit and he has great stories to tell. I think definitely we have been piggybacking early on, at least on the Estonian story, and then built on it. It's a good place to start building a product and then test it here and then go global. And I think this is what Veriff did. And we, from early on, it was good we started here and telling the Estonian story. And I think the other side of the story that we initially talked about quite a bit was the Skype Mafia. And I think you probably have heard the Skype Mafia story, and all the people who benefited early on from working there, getting the experience from there, but also getting some funds from the two sales of Skype that happened to eBay and Microsoft. So, and Veriff actually was also built on with that knowledge from the engineers who were there, and also there were investors who helped to start Veriff, but also there are the other Estonian unicorns like Wise or Pipedriver, Bolt. They all have benefited from that. But this was sort of the way we started shaping the initial founding story, and then it still lives in sort of in a little bit in a different format. But that was where we started building it.
That link between both of those things you said, like Karita, those early days, Carly, you coming in now. I wonder, is there a case of just cultural difference in the way we tell stories? Is there a Estonian/European versus American forward facing? Do you see that as something that's playing a part in the global storytelling journey?
We will always hold on to our roots as an Estonian born company. And I think that's really important. It really is a country that was built on digital trust, and that foundation shapes who we are. Karita has built that voice that was authentic and modern. And now my focus is really taking that and taking it more globally. I like to think of, we want Veriff to sound like one company with many accents. And it truly is, from an employee standpoint, exactly that. We want to be consistent at the core, but locally relevant and feel really real. And as we enter new markets, I don't think that the story changes. It just sort of adapts to the people that we're talking to. So it isn't that Veriff is a vendor that you buy from. It's more of like an infrastructure that you build on top of. It's the foundation of trust that your business grows from. So I think, we've been talking a lot about this idea of a trust life cycle, and I want that idea to travel globally. The message should resonate whether you're a fintech company in London or a marketplace in Sao Paulo or a dating app in New York. I think everyone understands that importance of building and maintaining trust, but sort of taking that sort of Estonian roots globally has really been the focus since I've joined.
When Carly was saying that the roots come from Estonia, that's a really strong base. But obviously now that we go to other markets, we need to build on that story. But also, interesting fact is that when we now launched in Brazil, they, for some reason, are really aware of Estonian digital identity and digital products. And so it was really good click, because it might be that in other markets, they may not know anything about us or our technology. So for some reason, in some other market, quite random, it might seem, they already know it. So there always is a balance. So we're not going to get rid of fully of the Estonian roots, but we will be building on it for sure, and seeing what is relevant for our clients wherever they are.
I'm wondering, how much should you center Karel as the story when it comes to selling Veriff?
Well, we still are using Karel's story, and I think we've been tweaking it a little bit, and he still remains our most precious spokesperson, and he is such a representative of the company, and so he's the soul of it, and also a young, charismatic guy who's done brilliant things. So this is like a jackpot for somebody in PR. So and I'm really lucky in that sense. But we also understand that everybody has 24 hours in a day. So, and we can't get him everywhere. But also we are in a very unique position because we have a great story. So the story is about solving a real problem that's out there in the world. So everybody can relate to it. So in that sense, it's easy to tell the story. We also now are moving to other brilliant minds that we have in Veriff. We have lots of global talent experts who've done what they are doing in Veriff 10 times before. So, and getting their knowledge in, their expertise in, and use them as spokespeople and help to build that trust through their expertise is sort of where we are moving. So it is a balance of Karel, but then also bringing in new people. And I think that's the only way you can do it, in Veriff case anyway.
Carl's story will always be a big part of who Veriff is. It's just his inherent belief that digital trust, it really sets the tone really for everything that has come after. I do think that the founder storytelling today can sort of complement a broader story, sort of reinforces that Veriff is very purpose-led and it has a team and a leadership team that truly believes in what we're building. But it's more just the values that he embodies. Like, he's so curious and he has a lot of impact and integrity, and those things show up in everything we do as a company. And so it's less just about him as a person, but how he's sort of implemented those values throughout the company as a whole.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because if you look at sort of Gen Z trends, we're seeing more and more research show that they're not buying from brands, they are buying from people and they're buying from stories. And as they become leaders in B2B spaces, I wonder how that is sort of playing into your wider strategy. Maybe sort of as an aside from that, Carol is also doing things away from the company, away in inverted commas. For example, the work with OpenAI coming into schools. I wonder how you're thinking about leveraging his maybe more personal work into the brand. Is that something that you consider?
Maybe just commentary on the OpenAI and the world of education. I think this is something that is rooted in very, very strongly, in the sense that in this world, you really, to be successful in Veriff, you need to push yourself, you need to learn all the time. And I think the part of education and giving back to the education is something that is deeply in Karel as well. And I think that's why OpenAI is just one project that he's been involved, but supporting other like creative accelerators for kids and things like that. So where you can develop your mind and improve yourself, these are the areas that he's very curious about and he would like to give back. But this is also transferred to Veriff as a company. So, but we haven't been trying to promote it or leverage it or sort of in a commercial way that much, but it's sort of more rooted in the people.
It is genuinely how he shows up. He is so curious and so helpful. I have a daughter that's just about to graduate from high school and go to college, and he has offered his time and to talk to her and share his ideas again about OpenAI and what's happening in technology to help better her. And that is who he is. And I do think that we can highlight that kind of work with OpenAI and with Estonia's education initiatives, but more, again, exactly what Karita had said, more of the values that are inherent in Veriff because of who he is as a person.
No, I love that. That's so cute. Something I've always just found really fascinating about talking to you, Karita, and your team is how much excitement there is for the story. Like, this can really change the world. And you also see that with some of those unicorn names that you mentioned there, like the Pipe Drives, the Wises, the Bolts of this world, that all came from that very similar beginning point of test/start here in Estonia and then spread to the world. But there is one slight difference, I think, which is a lot of them are B2C and they have something to sell and they have that excitement. You've managed to do that for what I would say is quite a dry theme. You're talking about identity verification. How are you trying to make it feel human? How are you giving it that personality?
In the end, I think it's all people that we are trying to sell, be it B2B, B2C. So, but yes, I think it's much more difficult to sell a product that you can't touch or you can't see or you don't really see the benefit. But I think what we've been selling from the beginning really is the trust. And when we started thinking of how to speak with the customer, so I think initially it was mostly that identity verification as a thing. People, let's say 5-6 years ago, even longer, they didn't know what it means. And so first we started to educate people so that they shouldn't be afraid of actually what identity verification is, so that they would trust the flow and trust it's something safe, their data is safe. It all changed with Corona, because this is when identity verification became much more of a everyday life, because all of a sudden everything was closed and you couldn't do anything in person. So you have to do everything remotely. How also the product evolved, and it's been amazing to see, because, for example, people who hadn't done identity verification before, so they do it for the first time. So they look at, so what you have to do, you say, okay, I need to take a photo. So people were like, I'm taking my passport photo, it has to be perfect. I'm taking, 5, 6, 7, 10 shots to get it perfect. So then they realized, oh, I need an identity verification document. So where is it? So they run to the other room and get the document and try. And this whole time the flow is going, which means the identity verification time is really long. But then we realized that, okay, maybe we need to change the order of steps in our identity verification. So we first take the document picture and then take a selfie. And so how to be smart, how to be more intuitive about the whole process. But the main thing is that people feel secure and trusted throughout this process. And when you have that trust, then it's much easier to build on it. The other side that of the storytelling was this fraud. So if you don't verify yourself, if you don't know who's the other person at the other side, you don't want to leave the feeling of fear and tell that, okay, if this happens, you'll be falling the victim of fraud. We'd like to be more of the enabler, that we open up the markets. We don't want to lead with fear. And so the trust in that sense has been the feeling that we try to build in our storytelling from early on. And that's something that we still now, 10 years later, build on.
I remember one of the first times I saw Carol speak, he talked about people taking their ID photo, which was once the passport photo, take it very professionally, to now being in bed in your PJs, lying down and taking a quick selfie. I wonder, that cultural change that happens, that consumer education piece, how are you looking at that moving forward, Carly? Is that something that you're thinking about in your strategy?
Yeah, it was reading some article recently about how people get so excited to take their passport photos, so they do their hair and their makeup and they look really beautiful, and then they get stopped at security at the airports like, this is definitely not you. You've been traveling all day and you look totally worn out and you're not matching up to that. I do think that really what consumers and businesses are trying to do is build that trust and connection between people and businesses. And I think, just as Karita was saying, as more people are aware of why you need to do that, why you need to establish who you are and sort of verify that over time, I think consumers are much more willing to participate in that and to protect themselves from fraud as well. I think I had mentioned the trust life cycle early on. Trust isn't just sort of like this one moment where you take your first selfie or your passport photo. It's more of like this life cycle. And I think that's starting to become my North Star at Veriff, and how I'm thinking about messaging and how we communicate with our products and to our customers and with our storytelling. It's something like, trust is something that you build and maintain and protect over time. And I do think that framing makes the story much more human and able to connect with consumers too. It's not just technology for technology's sake. It's about helping companies feel safe, helping consumers feel safe and confident and connected in a digital world. And I do think that's what is another area that's really exciting, the way that it does feel approachable and authentic, no matter when someone encounters Veriff, of like, oh, I understand this is to protect me and for me to feel safe in this digital world.
Anecdotally, when you download a dating app, for example, I mean, sneak peek, we're going to be talking about dating apps in the next episode, but when you download it, for example, Bumble, you don't have to verify yourself. But seeing other people verified, it's like, wait, maybe I should be too. I want that tick. I want to ensure that there's communal safety. I want people to believe that I'm real. And I feel like that education piece is something that we're seeing more and more.
And actually, we've also done some research with the end users and sort of see what is their expectation. And they, in fact, are expecting, it's more about financial services, but I'm sure that it's going to be true soon about dating apps. They expect the providers to go an extra mile to make sure that the company is asking for identity verification, because you don't want to be falling a victim of fraud or dating a bot or something. It's definitely the expectation, and the consumer mind is shifting towards actually making sure that I know I'm speaking with a real person and that person is who that they say.
I was watching a TV show last night with my husband and they were saying, "Oh, have you ever thought about joining the dating apps?" And this person had sort of a criminal past and he said, "No, because now, everyone can look up and learn all about you before you go on a date." And the other person said, "Oh, why not just make up who you are, make up a name?" And so it's definitely so relevant, this trust and establishing trust and who you are online, in all different paths on the internet.
100%. I actually want to go back, Carly, to something you said that has kind of stuck in my mind as a great quote, which was you want Veriff to be a company with many different accents. I probably paraphrased it badly there, but I wonder what that looks like in terms of all your storytelling channels, because does it look different from, say, the press versus your socials versus how you're talking to your B2B prospective and current clients?
Yeah, I think the feel should absolutely be the same, whether you're seeing a digital ad in Brazil or you're reading a press release in London. I want it to feel authentic to who Veriff is. And I do think having that core messages, being consistent and concise across the board, no matter what language you're coming through as, I think that's really important. We should be in all of these global channels and have people locally, and that's important as well. And we definitely have a global reach. It's one of the strengths of Veriff. But I think at the core, the messaging and what we provide and that trust life cycle that I talked about earlier, that should be consistent on how we help build, maintain, and protect that trust over time, no matter where we're showing up across the globe.
It's also good reflection looking inside, meaning we have over 50 different nationalities in Veriff. And so that also means that we need to be consistent how we speak with all of these people internally and also what we reflect to the audiences outside so that we actually tell the same story and tell it in the same way. And remain humble and don't tell people what they should do, but also give them instructions, support them, and be supportive to our customers. So it's totally aligned that we need to keep one voice regardless of which culture we're in. Of course, there are always little jokes translate differently, but these nuances is something that you as a global company need to realize and think of the audience while you do it.
You both alluded to the fact that Veriff is a global scaling company, and I think we've heard Brazil, America, Estonia, and a few other countries mentioned there. I wonder, with that, obviously your company numbers, your employee numbers are scaling. How are you thinking about branding internally?
Yeah, when I first joined, I was telling my husband it was so fun because every call, I had no idea where in the world this person would be that I was joining and meeting. But I really believe that you can't market what your people don't believe in. And so I do think we've been really prioritizing an employer brand and company values project right now, along with sort of an overall company brand refresh, because it really is one story internally and externally. And I do think that internal storytelling has been, especially as a new employee at Veriff, has where the brand has come to life. So moments like Summer Week, like I mentioned, we have internal hackathons, we have all company meetings, everyday team interactions. These are really these spaces where the pride and connection with employees are built. And I really think that when people feel connected to the mission and to the strategy of the company, they just naturally become our very best storytellers. I think Karita has done an amazing job ensuring sort of what we communicate inside the company feels very real and consistent with what we're sharing externally. And I do think that that is creating real authentic behavior, both internal and external, and connecting the story across the board as well. So it's very important to me. And it's definitely, I think that internal storytelling is alive and well. And yeah, I saw it firsthand, my first weeks at Veriff, which was really fun to see that energy and excitement. I would just leave it sounds very cheesy, but I would leave every team meeting and, happy hour, team gathering, anything that we were doing just with a big smile on my face because of that sort of pride and connection to the overall Veriff story.
And I think one thing that people share in Veriff, what they have in common, is that everybody's very excited about the mission that we're on. And I think it's really important when people come from so many different backgrounds, so many different countries, and so that they believe in the mission, what we are doing, and also that the values that we share are the same. And Carly mentioned the values project that we are currently going through. So we are 10 years old company. So the people who started, there are very few who are still in the company from the very early on time, and obviously the company is growing, people are growing with it, and so to make sure that the values that we built a long time ago, are they still valid? Do they still mean the same thing to our team? And so that we have a common understanding within the team that we all on the same page when it comes to values. And this is something that you need to do, refresh, and make sure that we are all aligned now that the company's across different continents, much bigger, and lots of different talent on board. So, and Carly also mentioned the summer week, and this is something. It's been a long tradition for Veriff, and it's I think it's a unique Estonian thing that is maybe they're called different in other parts of the world, but getting together and getting aligned, having fun, and actually now in this world where you don't see each other so much face to face, it's so invaluable, and this is where you see that the vibe is the same regardless of where you come from, and it gives you energy for the rest of the year.
And I've actually spoken to a few employees who have said that is their highlight of their year at work. And so it's obviously working. For people who are maybe a few years behind Veriff in their startup journey, what would you say are one or two things they should be doing right now, maybe in year 2, year 3, to really get that internal branding bit correct?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is being clear on your strategy, sort of mission, vision, values of this is why we exist, this is where we're headed, this is what we do to bring new customers in the door and delight and make our customers happy on a day-to-day basis. I think that's really important. And then again, like Karita said, I do think in this world where so much of what we do is done remotely, I do think it's really important to have that face-to-face time where you bring employees together and you connect and you have those real in-person moments of connection. I think I kept saying that the value of summer week is really around two primary things, and one is around alignment and the other one's around connection. So I think aligning around the goals of the company and sort of where you're headed, and then connecting with people. We spend a lot of time at work, but getting to know them on a personal level doesn't always happen that much anymore. And so I think that time in real life is really invaluable.
And maybe one more aspect is that keep trying. If you don't get it right the first time, then do a second, third, fifth iteration, and so test it on your internal teams, test it on your customers, and it's an evolving project, and things change with time, and so don't be afraid to fail. So, but if you fail, then fix it and move on. So don't brood over what's been happening. And I think that's been this is when you are in a fast scaling or quickly growing company. This is something that if you want to get ahead of the others, you need to fail fast and improve fast, and just leave behind what is there and not brood over it.
I should be writing with a notebook all your top tips. My last question is, we're at 10 years. Congratulations. It's an amazing feat. What are you excited about in this decade to come? What do you think are the things that we're going to see? What excites you?
Yeah, I would say almost immediately. So right now we're in the middle of what we're calling a brand refresh. So we're really aligning how we look and sound and feel with who we've become. I've been joking that everyone thinks that a new CMO's first action is a rebrand. I'm saying this really isn't a rebrand, but I feel like our brand needed to catch up to who we already are. So we are an innovative company. We're confident. We're global. I think this new chapter is really building on the voice and credibility that has already been established by Karita and others over the last 10 years, but it really extends it to reflect that Veriff isn't just in identity verification anymore. We're really defining trust infrastructure as a category. And I know I've mentioned this whole sort of trust life cycle as our North Star, but I do think it helps companies move from like a one-time compliance check or a one-time identity verification, that sort of where we came from originally. And it becomes more of this continuous confidence-based trust. So it isn't just one-time identity verification. It is, we prove who is your customer, who they say they are, then can they be trusted? And then over time, do we still trust this person? Is this person still the person that they said they were originally? And so I think it's really taking that story, and marketing's role is really to make that story tangible, connecting trust to business growth and customer outcomes, and really building lasting relationships. So I do think it's sort of building on the great work that's already been done over the last 10 years and just making it much more tangible. Fraud and compliance and all these tactics with AI especially are constantly evolving. And so, yeah, whether I'm watching the TV show that I mentioned or a news report that I'm reading, this is so relevant. What we are doing is so relevant. I think that it makes me excited to wake up every day and come to work is, we're going to continue to adapt and evolve and change and stay on top of these things to provide value and, make the internet a safe place for everyone.
Well, as our mission is making internet a safer place, I think it's going to be really hard to fully fulfill this mission because there's always new dangers coming to the internet. So in that sense, I think we could be around forever so that we can protect making the internet safer. But the other dream that we've had for a long time at Veriff, and I believe it's going to become true, is to become a verb, so that you verified yourself. So this is something that we are working towards. And maybe that's part of the Veriff passport that Karl is talking about, the Veriff ID, so that you could get access to any service from anywhere, regardless of where you are, what background you're in. You don't have to start verifying your identity in every single provider, but you can do it once you've done it with Veriff. You have that trusted source that I'm Karita in the real world and in the online world. And this is that we are making that possible. So that's sort of the bigger dream that we are working towards.